YouTube, welcome. Against the Spread here, back with some above average, mediocre content. Today we make our top picks for week 5 of the NFL. We have Tim Nato 7, TB4, and myself BX Star 10. Just a quick recap of week 4. I only went 1.5. I picked the Bears as my lock pick, and they did not come through last week, but they did win on Thursday. That was nice, but it was not part of the against the spread. But being a Bears fan, it's nice for them to be 4-1. Last week, TB4 went 2.5 out of 4, and NATO went 3 out of 4
for the third time this year.
Yeah, I think between me and BX Star, we both had a similar game with Tampa Bay -7. I think they kind of got down early and then they came back and they ended up just blowing them out at the end, but just to barely cover 7, and squeak by with a half a point is nice, but that game shouldn't have been close to begin with. Tom Brady all of a sudden caught fire in the second half, and it was just like a completely different team came out. Mike Evans was hobbling. I was expecting a little bit more out of him. I thought he was a little bit healthier, but he's back at it again this week. I think they're gonna have a long time to prepare after that loss on Thursday night to our Bears. But, I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little bit nervous on that kick.
Who wouldn't be?
After Cody Parkey that one year, that was rough. All right, Bo, let's get into our week 5 picks here. NATO 7, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure thing. So I got the Raiders plus 11.5 going up against KC. I got Atlanta. I got the over on Atlanta game, just like all of you do. And then I have the Colts +1 going up against the Browns, who really put up a really nice performance against Dallas. I just don't see them repeating it because they're that kind of team, They're the pair of twos. They look good at first, and then as it goes along, they just keep getting worse and worse. And I think
that analogy.
Yeah. I think the Colts are a really good team. You saw how they played the Bears. They're a complete team. They're good on offense, good on defense, and I just think that they outplay the Browns.
I looked at that game too, and that to me was definitely a coin flip. I like the line where it's at. I have a hard time taking the Colts. I don't think they're going to have enough offense to keep up with the Browns. The Browns are looking like everything's starting to click. I actually think the Browns win this game outright. I think they actually win by either between 4 and 7. I think that's gonna be a close game. I think the Browns come ahead.
I don't know. It's going to be pretty close. I mean, the Browns' offense is really good, but their defense is lacking, and I think that's been proven against Dallas. Dallas does have also a good offense. We'll just see if the Colts are able to keep up with them or if their defense steps up to the plate.
Yep. We'll and then I got the Raiders plus 11.5, and I know they're going up against KC, who took care of Baltimore easily last week, and I saw that happening. And the Raiders, they're a good team. They've had a couple of tough weeks, but they beat the Saints. I think they're a good team, and getting 11.5 points in a divisional matchup, I think the Raiders can stay within 10, keep it in. A single-digit game.
11.5 is a lot. I mean, to be down 7, okay. To be down 10, but 11.5, that's when you start. Anything over 10.5 starts to be a different game.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, divisional games, they're always going to be fought tough, and, the Raiders aren't a bad team.
And it depends on which Chiefs come out. I tend to agree with you. I mean, they played, tough against the Chargers and barely squeaked away with a win, and I can argue that the Raiders would give Chargers a run for their money.
I think this game kind of comes down to Josh Jacobs. If he can have a good game, like I think that could keep it close. I mean, if they can do 4 quarters of it, they can end up pulling this game out.
Yeah, that's what you got to do against the Chiefs. You got to keep the ball, you got to keep the time of possession, keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hand, and that's how you beat them. I mean, that's really the only way. And then Atlanta over 53.5. Atlanta puts up points every week. They lose, but they put up points, and they're going up against Carolina, who they don't have the best defense either, but they can score points. So,
I'm loving Todd Gurley in this matchup. And actually, we all have Atlanta over 53. I had it as a lock. You both have it as your number 2 pick. So I think we're all seeing the same thing. I mean, I think that game doesn't end under like a 30-27. I mean, I don't see it.
Mike Davis has also been really good for Carolina, replacing McCaffrey. So he hasn't been pushed to come back before he's actually ready.
Agreed. And let's not forget about Robbie Anderson stepping up. Bridgewater's been playing pretty well. Carolina just finds a way to score points, and so does Atlanta. So that game's going to be a shootout. So I mean, as for the lock pick, I mean, lock it. I mean, we're across the board on that one. We're 75% out of all of our lock picks so far this year. So I mean, I think the odds are in our favor. We've been playing the spreads pretty well. Going into my 2 picks, I have Cincy over 50.5 and Houston minus 5.5. So Houston's playing Jacksonville. I think Derrick Henry finally, or not Derrick Henry, David Johnson finally has a breakout game. Deshaun Watson's finally going to be starting to click with his receivers. I've kind of been saying the same thing. I just don't see them as a bad team. They have way too much talent. I think they have one of the hardest schedules in football. Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, they're finally going to come out of their new team shells. I think that they're going to have some breakout games. Will Fuller's been pretty consistent. We'll see what J.J. Watt shows up. But I think they put the hurting on Jacksonville. I think they actually win that game 27-20. And Minshew might struggle a little bit. So we'll see how that game goes. Cincy, Cincy's playing Baltimore, and Baltimore's going to be a tough team, but AJ Burrow has been putting up a lot of points. He still has some pretty good receivers in Boyd and Green, even though they haven't been playing that well. They've been spreading the ball around pretty well. They still got Joe Mixon, who's a workhorse. I look for them to put up some numbers, and I really just don't see Cincy's defense stopping Baltimore at all. The only downside to Baltimore right now is the potential loss of Andrews, but there's just so much firepower on Atlanta's offense with Jackson. I just don't see it not being an over.
Yeah, and Cincinnati's game, I think that line's actually going to be really close to that because I can see it being like a 30 to 20 game, something close to that. And I think they might actually end up just covering, just barely losing by 10.
Fair.
Yeah, that's a tough game right there. But I think Baltimore, I think that game goes over just because Lamar Jackson, they're going to score points, and Cincinnati's coming back from behind. They're going to be throwing, and I think they'll get enough to get the game to go over.
I like it. I'm looking at BX Stars picks, Chargers plus 8.5 and Seattle over 56.5. I don't hate either one of those, but I think that they can both be trap games. With Michael Thomas coming back, and Seattle's defense is starting to improve a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts on the Chargers in Seattle.
Well, I'll start with my lock pick with Seattle's over. I think that this is going to be an old-fashioned shootout here. I mean, you have Dalvin Cook. I mean, he's really good. Seattle's defense is not very good. I can see
they're
this
about worst in the league against the pass.
Yeah,
most yards
exactly.
given up. I mean, yeah, they're just brutal.
And Kirk Cousins has gotten a lot of flack just because he hasn't won many games. But I still think that he's going to put up some points. Any games, yeah. But I mean, he still has some weapons on offense, and he's going to utilize them here, especially against a pretty bad defense in Seattle. And Russell Wilson, I mean, I don't know, he's been MVP type player this year. So
yeah, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league year in and year out, and he's hopefully getting the respect he deserves now. And I anytime Seattle's playing, there can be a lot of points, and 56.5 is a lot, so I wanted to stay away from that, but yeah. I can see it going over for sure.
I can see Seattle putting up 30 to 34. My concern is, can Minnesota make that difference up? And it really depends on Seattle's defense. If they slow them down a little bit, that game's not going over.
Yeah, and another thing with that game, it kind of depends how the game plays out, because if the Vikings score first, and they get a stop, they're going to try and run the ball. That's their go-to. Dalvin Cook is the best part of their offense. They don't want to get into a shootout where they're throwing the ball. But if Seattle scores first, goes up 14-0, then that kind of forces the Vikings to throw and, kind of speed up their offense. So it kind of depends on how the beginning of that game goes, if it goes over.
So now we have Atlanta. We talked about our picks. We have Atlanta over 53. I mean, 53.5, and you can lock that. Take it to the bank. Do you guys have any sleeper players this week for FanDuel owners or anything like that? Have you guys looked at any lineups? Who do you guys like in these matchups this week?
Honestly, I like speaking of the Vikings against Seattle. Justin Jefferson, the last 2 weeks, he's gone over 100 yards.
Oh my guys. Okay. I like it.
Yeah, and Seattle's got the worst pass defense going off of yards given up, so he could be in for another big week.
I agree. And actually, now that we're talking about him, that's a good point. I mean, it might take a little bit of that pressure off of Thielen. One of my main guys this week, I'm riding hard is Robbie Anderson. I think he's going to have easy time, easy matchups in Atlanta. It was part of my decision in looking at that Atlanta over. I think Bridgewater's been starting to get in sync with him. I'm looking at him to at least get 12 to 14 targets and hopefully 9 to 10 receptions. And he's definitely going over 100. He scored a touchdown. It's just the cherry on top. But Robbie Anderson's been playing some pretty good football this year, and I'm looking for him to have a breakout week.
Yeah, I like that too, especially because, he's been the number one over DJ Moore, who going into the year, you thought DJ Moore was the number one guy there, but Robbie Anderson's kind of taken away from him. I'm hoping DJ Moore actually bounces back and has his breakout game this week.
And we'll see what happens with Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he's back from IR this week. I know he got hurt in the first week I think it was against the Bills. But he is back this week, and we'll see what he can actually do.
Yeah,
I mean, he's playing Arizona, and their defense are kind of mediocre at best. So, I mean, he could have some sort of dump down screen and maybe break a big one. We'll see.
Yeah, the Jets are sitting right now at +7. I mean, maybe if Le'Veon Bell, Sam Darnold had a little bit of connection. I mean, Crowder's healthy, he's playing. So I mean, that might not even be a bad spot there too. Arizona's been keeping games close, and they gave one up 2 weeks ago. So we'll see how that game plays out. But it's not something I was willing to put the TV 4 rep down on. So
a rule of advice: never ever bet on the Jets. Ever.
Yeah, you'll be very disappointed. And you know what? As I found out last week, and going into my teaser parlays and teaser bets, don't bet on Atlanta plus anything. Jeez, man, that really let me down.
Yeah.
If you bet on that Jets over, it might work out. If you bet him against the Denver on Thursday, that was a pretty high-scoring game. And now just imagine if Le'Veon Bell was back.
When I tease all my bets and I'm making my percentages and I'm already above 50%, I'm looking pretty good. Looks like we're all having a pretty good year. I'm looking forward to taking down our 3-way little ship here. If you're not first, you're last. So, if you guys like this content.
You actually are last, so.
Not for long. You guys just have to copy my picks of this Atlanta over. I mean, I was like, oh, let's book it. Let's go. And you guys are like, oh, yeah, Atlanta looks great. This is a great week.
I already had a parlay on it, so I figured I might as well ride it.
There you go. That a boy.
All right. Well, if you guys like
this content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Tune in next week. Thanks, guys.